Hello, I'm with Marcus Owens, the Executive Director of the African American Leadership Forum. Marcus, welcome to this present moment. It's a delight to have you here. Can you tell us about how these times are impacting the African American community and what you're seeing?
Yeah, so a few things that has happened since COVID has started. So right away, one of the first things that we identified was the need for information to be presented to the community in a cultural specific way. There was a lot of misinformation around this disease or this virus and what it would do to our community and how we protect ourselves. So we created a virtual town hall called We Good, which is a euphemism in the community to check on each other to make sure that we're all right and we have the information that we need. What we really want to do is bring in the health experts from our community to say, hey, this is what's really happening with COVID, how it's impacting us health-wise. But then we start to bring in other community leaders in education and economics and health and wellness to just talk about the other impacts of COVID in the community. So that's the first thing that we've done. And we see that as something that we're going to continue on. The second thing that we really focus on is the economic impact. And we brought together Black-led and serving organizations that support businesses within the state of Minnesota. They're really working on how do businesses open safely through this period of COVID. And they came up with the concept of creating a PPE or personal protective equipment marketplace. This is a collective buying agreement across these organizations that would then buy these supplies so that they can provide it to the businesses at little to no cost. Tied to that, they're also looking at how do we look at the mentors, the business mentors in our community and bring them so we can create one-on-one mentorships with the businesses in our community. And then lastly, how do we build awareness of these businesses and tell the consumers and the customers across the state that they're safe to come back to? Because what we're seeing right now is people they're very wary about coming back to these businesses.
What kind of creative solutions are you implementing that have helped you connect even more broadly with the community?
What we've really been focusing on the last 2 years is taking that 1,500 people that are in our network and saying, okay, how do you want to contribute? It's not just enough to show up to an event or be a part of a mailing list, but it's saying, well, how do you want to contribute to the community? And we say, we call them network contributors, and we say, you can give your time, your talent, or your treasure, right? And when you tell us how you want to contribute, now we can find more specific ways for you to get involved. So our thought leaders came together in a task force, and their job is to identify problems in a human-centered design approach. We call it Black-centered design. And from that, they come up with the problems. They come up with a problem statement. Then they identify who in the community is already working on that problem to solve for it. And then we go out and reach out to them and say, well, how are you approaching this right now? What do you need? And from there, we created a project plan that we launched back in January. Then we brought the rest of the network in to create work streams in the areas of economics, education, health and wellness, and family and culture. We've got some fantastic projects that create a directory of community healers for the city of Minneapolis and then across the region, actually, where it says, you can come to this place, here's a hub, and you can find cultural practitioners that are culturally specific and trauma informed. The other project is saying, around education, how do we think about cultural specific ways to provide curriculum and then work with teachers in other institutions that are training teachers to be more culturally relevant to our students. And then economics, it's all really around, and this is what I'm really excited about, is how do we start to create a self-determined model to provide funding resources to build a community that is very specific and owned and led by African Americans. That's one thing that's missing in our region right now, is a place that we can call home, so that then we can actually fulfill what we see our purposes as a community, so that then we can participate in the rest of the region.
In the midst of the murder of George Floyd, we've also had a need to bring the community together to heal. What are some of the examples of the way you and your partners and your leadership cohort have been doing that?
You know, this kind of reminds me at the beginning of the year, I wrote on my whiteboard, this one quote that says, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." So right now, it's all about the mind. How do we calm ourselves and how we heal ourselves through this traumatic moment? We said, okay, let's create spaces, both virtually and in person, so people can have spiritual healing, they can have physical healing, and they can have mental healing. And we see 90 days of this right now, where it's just, let's not talk about strategies. Let's talk about healing each other right now and working through what we're feeling. With that, we've done virtual therapy sessions. We've done physical activities on Fitness Fridays, which has been fantastic, working with some of the cultural practitioners within the community to just say, hey, I can do this. Just give me the space for it, which has really been helpful because we see ourselves as a hub and a portal. So it's just figuring out who are the leaders and how do we empower them to do what they do best.
I just love the way it embraces all of the issues and all of the capacities of the community. So you've done an incredible job of working with people who are self-identified leaders, people who the community points to and says, these are the leaders, they're doing it. But you also help grow the next generation of leaders. Can you tell me more about the Josie Johnson Leadership Program?
Yeah, so we're in our 6th year of the Josie R. Johnson Leadership Academy. And this is a program that has evolved over time now. And we have now 95 leaders in our network that are alumni of it. And this year we have 18 fellows that are cross-generational, they're cross-sector, and they have such a rich experience of what they're bringing right now. And this academy is really about saying, how do we invest in the leadership of our community? How do we say, these are the emerging leaders, whether they're emerging because they're young or emerging because they found a new way to lead in community? And how do we invest in them through professional development? So they all have coaches, professional coaches that are helping them with personal development. How do we connect them to leaders within our community? So we have torchbearers that have, been well established and have been doing work for a long period of time. And then how do we start to help them understand the connections across our community to say, this is the history of our community. And we bring them on what we call community excursions, where they learn the history and they learn about the different work that's already happening. And then we put them to work afterwards for the next 6 months. And we say, now that we've invested in you, we need you to do some work for the community. Practice what you've been learning over this past 6 months and then apply it in a real way. So now you can lead the rest of the community. And they connect to that task force that I mentioned before, where now they're going to work to build a work stream of projects that really move our community forward.
In all of your work, you seem to take the expected and the unexpected leader and the programs and opportunities that are already existing in the community and weave them together to make it a stronger fabric that just will endure with even more resilience than before.
That's right. It's really about community. I mean, there's not one leader. We have to get out of this idea that there's a monolithic leader that will move us forward. If you look back at the days of the civil rights movement, where you had Martin Luther King and Malcom X and many others that were prominent leaders that you saw and you heard from, there were so many other people around them that led and did things that were behind the scenes even that really moved that movement forward. And we have to see ourselves in this moment right now to say, everybody has a role to play. And our role with the forum is to say, how do we create lanes and spaces so people can fill them, but then also invest in them so that they see themselves in that leadership and they can start to weave that fabric together, as you mentioned, because then we're a lot stronger and you can't just take out one person. It's about a collective of people that are coming together to do something right for themselves, but then for the greater whole.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Can you tell people who are watching today how they can support your work in your community?
Yes. So come to our website. You can see all the wonderful things. You can even see the events that we're doing now and in the past. Come there, visit us on Facebook as well.
Marcus Owens, thank you for joining me in this present moment. Thank you for all the work you do for our community.
Thank you.